Hi everybody, Joe Malarkey from Malarkey 365. So, I see a lot of instructions and videos on how to configure Defender for Endpoint on Windows because that's locked in. That's easy. Microsoft tells you exactly how to do it. Windows is half ready to do it already. It's got the Defender antivirus already installed on it. So that's kind of baked in, not too much of a problem. We've talked about that. What about Macintosh? Well, that's a different ball game. So today, I'm going to give you a bit of a crash course on onboarding and configuring Defender for Macintosh. Okay, everybody, here we go. Onboard Macintosh to Defender for Endpoint. Got a couple of slides as usual just to kind of keep me focused. So what's involved in this? Well, so Macintosh's environment has changed over the last few years. Apple has built in some more protection, some privacy, so that applications can't just do whatever they want. So we actually need to put some settings on the device, and we're going to use Intune for this. Though of course we could use Jam for or locally we could instruct the operating system, but we're going to use Intune for this. Now, what I've done is I've broken this all out into what I think you should kind of use in Intune. So I have listed here 6 different things. 5 of them are profiles. One of them is an app, and as you can see, it's actually the Defender app itself. Now on Windows, this is a couple of apps. It's the Defender for Antivirus on Windows, and it's the Sense service on Windows, maybe a couple of other things in there. On the Macintosh, it's all combined into one app that's not there by default, so you have to install it. However, that app needs a lot of help. And these profiles are what help it. Starting with the number 1, there is a bunch of prerequisites that you got to send to a Macintosh, configurations that allows the Defender app to work properly. Most of them are kind of like permissions to do stuff. We have to get some system extensions that are allowed. We have to allow full disk access. We have to allow networking access so we can do the web content filtering. We'd like to turn off some notifications so users aren't bothered or asked if it's okay to do certain things because of the privacy built into Apple. So the prerequisites profile is the first thing. Now, I have a combined prerequisites profile. Microsoft advertises 5 different profiles. They do give you one combined one, but you actually got to go and discover it yourself on their GitHub site. But if you go there, you'll see all the profiles. One of them, if you move around a little bit, is the combined one. It's not updated. Well, none of them are super updated, but the combined one is not as updated as the individual one. So I've actually added to that, and I'll give you a link to my combined one again. I'm not your IT department. Don't use the stuff that I give you just out of hand. Look into it. Make sure that it does what you want. If you compare my version to the Microsoft combined version, you're actually just going to see is it either 3 or 4 extra lines, XML lines, beginning, and it just adds another permission in there for WebDAV. I forget the actual spelling, but anyway. So you got to have that just so that app runs. Now, I'm going to say this a couple of times. That thing needs to hit the device before the Defender app hits the device. How are you going to do that? I don't know. My best way to do it is to assign all these profiles to a device group, all devices, and then assign the Defender app to users. That gives you a good probability that the prerequisite profile and all the other profiles, but the prerequisites is the important one that gets there first. It's going to give you a good odds that thing's going to hit first. Now you could do a manual timing and only put people into the Defender for the Macintosh Defender app after a certain period of time. It's a pain in the neck. Now, if you actually use ABM and you have a flow where you purchase from Apple, it goes through the first boot up in the ABM system. You have an Intune connector from ABM. Well, then device profiles actually do hit the machine fairly early. So it's almost guaranteed that that way is going to work. But if you have people manually enrolling with Intune, then there's a chance that the app could get there first before the prerequisites profile. Usually it's not a problem. If you reboot the whole machine, everything works out just fine. That's your first troubleshooting step, by the way, reboot that machine. All right, what else? Well, Defender app also needs to know how to work, so you have to have a protection profile. Is behavior monitoring turned on? Is there a schedule? Is tamper protection? All that kind of stuff turned on. Now, I do have tamper protection here as a third profile. I like to keep tamper protection in a separate profile so I can target it or untarget it. Now, obviously, we've gone over tamper protection in the past. Tamper protection keeps people from doing stuff like adding local exclusions or turning off the service or whatever. And there is a troubleshooting mode that you can execute from the console that actually you can use to disable most of those. But sometimes you actually really do need to get that tamper protection off of a machine, and you don't want to just turn it off globally. So I like to keep the tamper protection separate. Up to you, though. You can also add that into that protection configuration profile, the second one in this list, or tamper protection, as always, is a global item you can enable in the Defender profile, and that just sets it everywhere. I don't really like that, but you could do that. All right. Fourth, onboarding. Yes, we still need an onboarding profile. Without the onboarding profile, Defender on the machine will actually do its job. It'll do antivirus, all this kind of stuff. We got all the settings, but we won't see anything in the portal. We can't control it from the portal. Can't do all those cool things. So we definitely want an onboarding profile. The Defender app itself I mentioned, and then also, no matter what you're doing in Microsoft, if you have Microsoft apps on the machine, right? Office apps, Teams, whatever, always have a Microsoft auto update. This is different from the Macintosh operating system updates. This is specific to Microsoft. And it's one thing that updates anything Microsoft, including Defender. Make sure you have one of those in there as well. All right. So the prerequisites thing. This is the weirdest one and the most difficult to understand right away. Microsoft gives you instructions on how to do that at this link. I'll put this link in the description. I also have a link to a GitHub where you can see my prerequisites file. I'll put that in the description as well. But if we go to this website, and I will go there. I have Edge open in the background. This is the website. Let me scroll to the top here. Deploy Microsoft Defender for Endpoint on Mac OS with Microsoft Intune. Great. And a good article. You got to read it about 10 times before it starts hitting home. And you're like, oh, okay, I get it. Because the first thing you see is, look at this mess. Look at this table. You're like, oh my gosh. This looks like it's going to take a year. Well, yeah. Some of these things you might not really need. They're not absolutely critical for putting a Defender on the device. For instance, device control, data loss prevention. Device controls is blocking USB or using the USB blocking in conjunction with Defender for Endpoint. Maybe it's too early to do that. You might not need all of that. So not all of these are necessary, but most of them are. You have to approve some system extensions just so the app works. Network extensions, so the web content filtering will work. Full disk access, obviously. Configuration settings, yeah, we're going to do this a different way. In fact, I'm going to show you a pretty good way to do all of these things. Background services, that's another one of the prerequisites. Notifications, prerequisite. Accessibility, may or may not need that. Bluetooth, up to you. Again, most of the bottom ones don't necessarily have to do. I would say accessibility, Bluetooth, device control, data loss prevention, optional. Auto update, not optional. Need that to get the Defender updated all the time. Onboarding package, and then deploy it. Okay, so Here's all the system profiles that Microsoft mentions. Yeah, do read through these, okay? These tell you kind of what's going on in the background. But what Microsoft tells you to do, again, is it tells you to take the first 5 steps here, and I'll show them to you, and send them out as separate profiles. Well, now you have a library of profiles in your Mac configuration before you even get to configuring Defender. So it's a bit much. I've put all of those into one. So step 1, all this stuff, system extensions, allowing these extensions to run. That's fine. Again, show you how to do this all in one. Network filter, same thing, to let web content filtering work. Full disk access, obviously we need that. Background services, this lets the services run in the background without prompting. And then notifications, again, these are the notifications that do go out to the user. This is optional. If you want them to show up, fine, but I don't like them to show up. It just confuses people, has them call the help desk, and frankly, we don't need it. So those are the first 5. Those are the ones that that we need to get down to the machine. Now, again, accessibility, Bluetooth, optional. Auto update, not optional. Configuration settings, I'll show you how to do this, tell Defender how to work. Network protection, I'll tell you about that. That's in the configuration as well. Device control, again, that was the optional one I mentioned before for the USB. And then get the application in there. So nice 12 steps. Is there any more? I don't even know. 13. Oh yeah, the onboarding. They forgot to talk about that. I'll mention that. I won't show you actually the onboarding, but the onboarding package, just like in Windows, it's something that you will get from the Defender portal. It's specific to your company, so you can't use it elsewhere. You'll download it and then you'll push it out. In this case, it's a big long XML file. As any kind of custom file is, we'll use a few of those in Intune, and then deploy it and then check. They have you run some tests, the EICAR test, all that kind of stuff. All right, let's go to the GitHub for Microsoft. Here it is. The link to this is in that document that I was just showing you. If you click there, you go to these individual profiles, background services, full disk access, and you got to figure, okay, which ones did Joe say were optional and when it, blah, blah, blah. You can download the 5 big ones, combine them, or you can start out with Microsoft's combined one. Here it is, boom. And let me click on this one. Which one? Yeah, this is it. This one is missing a couple of things. The system extensions, they added something to that like about a year ago. Obviously, it's not in this one because this one's from 2 years ago. I put it in mine. So if you download mine, you're going to get all 5 of them plus the updated version that Microsoft sent out for the system services. Just adds a couple of lines. So all 4 of the absolute prerequisites you get in that profile and the notifications one. But I just downloaded this from Microsoft and I added the stuff I needed to add to it. So read through mine, and once you start reading through them, you get how they look. I'll show you an example of that in just a second. So instead of doing all 5 of those and creating, download custom XML, you'll upload it into a custom profile, assign it to the devices group. Instead of doing that all 5 times, it's a pain in the neck. There's a lot of work. Download a file, create a profile, upload the file to that profile, assign it, go on to the next one. Doesn't sound like a lot of work, but then all of a sudden you got all these profiles, you look at them, you're like, oh, I forget what all these do. I don't like it. I like the combined version. Microsoft says, well, it's easier to troubleshoot if you separate them. What's there to troubleshoot? What, really? That's how you're going to troubleshoot? Start turning off different prerequisites? I don't think so. I think just a combined version is the best way to go. All right, so I'm going to go to my Phony Baloney test site here. And here you can see I do have a profile called Mac Combined Prerequisites. Notice it's a custom type. Custom profiles for Mac are the kind that use an XML as their payload. So I'm going to click on this one. And you can see I've put a description in there. I didn't get to all of it, but it's basically, I always put a description in here that lists the 5 main things: system extensions, full disk access, background services, notifications. I forgot to put a couple in there, but you get the idea. Assign it to all devices. This is the one that needs to hit early. All right, what are the settings? Well, I'm going to click on the edit. The whole settings here is an XML file. All right, you download the file, upload it here, and inside of here you can see it's got a string here, what it is, the core settings, bunch of stuff in here, the antivirus engine, some background services, other things. So this is a big long one that does everything, including the notifications. So that hits a machine, and now the app can get installed. All right, let's go back to my configuration, and actually let's go back to my PowerPoint here. So that's the prerequisites. Again, I'll put a link in there to not only Microsoft's GitHub, but to mine with the combined version. Defender configuration. Ooh, there's a bunch of ways to do this. You could use an XML and a custom file for this, but that's way too confusing. Try reading through one of those when you want to modify a setting. It's too much. Microsoft supplies two different endpoint security templates that you can use for this. They also supply settings that you can get from Settings Catalog. I prefer, in this instance, the Settings Catalog method because there's a couple of things that are missing, like a scan schedule from their endpoint security ones. They have a couple of deprecated settings in their endpoint security template. They say deprecated, but it's very confusing when you look at that. So we'll look at both, and I'll point out how to kind of build your own here. So let's do that. All right, let's go to endpoint security here. This is how you could start it out. I'm going to go to antivirus, and I'm going to create, you see I have a Mac AV here already, but I'm just going to create another one here, Macintosh, and oh boy, I got 3 things in here. Well, the exclusions, we understand what that is. I would recommend keeping exclusions separate from the main anti-malware policy because you're going to eventually have different groups of users or departments that require different exclusions. So instead of just sending exclusions to everybody for everything, you could actually separate it out. And that's why Microsoft has done this. Now, you could use those exclusions for your exclusion policy, but it's easy enough just to create a settings catalog exclusion list. It's just 1 or 2 settings, basically. So let's see. I'm going to click on this antivirus. I won't finish this, but we'll just see what this looks like. All right, so a bunch of cloud delivered protection, antivirus engine settings. Yeah, these are all things we would want to set up. Here's some exclusions in here. Network, tamper protection. These are all settings that we want, okay? But nowhere in here do we have a schedule, which I kind of like. And also, where is it? Yeah, this deprecated stuff. It's confusing as hell, all right? Real-time protection, passive mode deprecated, what's that stuff? Well, real-time protection seems like we kind of like that on, wouldn't we? Yeah, but that's actually not where you turn it on. The new way to turn all this on is right here under enforcement level. This is the only setting. You shouldn't use the other one. This is the replacement for it. Is that well explained here? Sure doesn't look that way to me, and it's not. So that's another reason why I like the settings catalog. So I don't like this one. I'm going to close that. Here's generally the how things get updated in Intune for any operating system, including Macintosh. Apple, for instance, will expose settings in their operating system that can be manipulated by an MDM. The MDM client can now put those settings into the operating system. Do the MDMs like Intune and Jamf and whatever else know how to do that? They got to be programmed to do that, okay? So the first place that stuff goes, or the first way you can do it, is always through those custom profiles, because those are XMLs that are sent directly to the operating system. The operating system knows what to do with them. You don't need to be updating that at Intune. Okay? You just tell it the XML file to send to the Mac, and the Mac takes care of the rest. That always works. So the second Apple does this, you could start sending down those XML files. But again, they're a little confusing. So the next tier of easiness from Intune, let's say, and it's true for Jamf and everybody else, is Microsoft, for instance, will make a settings catalog setting for that particular XML setting. So it makes it a lot easier. You just find it in settings catalog and you put it in. That's the next place where they update stuff. That's their update cadence, settings catalog. The third place is templates. And Microsoft is not updating templates all that often. You just saw that. They have one called deprecated. Okay. You're lucky that it says deprecated. They're not adding and removing too much. They're kind of keeping it bare bones. Again, another reason why to stick with the settings catalog, because those are updated more often. The stuff is easier to understand. Sometimes it's a little confusing, but you got the total manual way with the XML file and the older template way that's not updated on a good cadence. And in the middle of the road, you have these settings catalogs, settings. Same is true for Microsoft Windows. You got the settings catalog. And maybe that'll be improved in the future. Categories might get better. I don't know, but it's the way it is, and it's the best way to do it now. So let's take a look at the settings catalog that I have for this particular one. Here's Mac OS configuration. And you can see in here I got my anti-malware settings catalog, right? I'm going to click on this, and all I did, obviously, I'm sure everybody has done this in the past, is you click on add settings and you start looking for stuff like Defender. And what do you know? You got a bunch of Defender settings here, including the auto update. They threw it in there, yeah, because you need auto update. Antivirus engine, cloud delivered protection, some EDR preferences, network protection, different kinds of stuff. So all the ones that we really want, I've already put into mine. So let's go over what you want to have in your policy. All right. I'll just go from top to bottom. This is just the order that you get thrown in here. File hash computation. You always want to turn that on here and in Windows. It requires a little more processor power, but that's the thing that allows you to use hash indicators from the Defender portal for files, for allows and blocks. If you're ever going to use those, you got to turn this on. Enforcement level. Here's that thing that tells Defender how to work. The thing that they had a deprecated setting and a newer setting over in the antivirus here. This is the one you want. Real time is what you want. Passive we don't want to use. That's if you have a different antivirus. We're not going to get into that at all. Real time is what you want. Exclusions merge. Do you want your local administrators on Mac? And they're probably local administrators, at least half of them, especially if they've enrolled via company portal. They're administrators on their Mac, right? Do you want them excluding stuff if they know how? Probably not. If you ever do want them to do that, again, you can put their device into troubleshooting mode, and then they can temporarily do that, or they can just communicate it to you, and you can add it to exclusions. So that's something you probably don't want them doing. Run scan after definitions are updated. I always like to do that. Scan exclusions. Here's your exclusions. We'll talk about exclusions in another video, but it's files, folders. Threat types, I threw these in here because these are also could be exclusions, or things you turn on. Archive bomb and potentially unwanted application. Those are the two you got here. Potentially unwanted, same as in Windows. These are just bulkware, adware, stuff that Microsoft has flagged as not having a great reputation. So if it's found on the list, you can block it. Here you can see I'm only auditing. Yeah. I don't want to tell you to turn block on, but probably you can turn block on. But the audits are local. You'll have to reach out to that machine to see what's been blocked and what hasn't. Still a bit of a pain in the neck. So if you block it, though, people will notice that. and it'll get reported in the portal a lot more than auditing. Archive bomb. Yeah, I would say blocking these. This is a special, this is archives that have been compressed, super compressed, so that if they're ever expanded, they could actually fill the hard drive up. It's a denial of service attack. I don't know of a big reason why you would ever want to compress something like that, so I'm going to turn that on. Threat settings, merge, same thing for these. Do we want local users to turn them off? Up to you. Maybe you do. Cloud delivered protection preferences, another category you want on here. Now, anytime you see bold, that's category. And you usually want all those settings in there. So this one, automatic security intelligence, obviously, yes. Collection level, this is for Microsoft's diagnostics. That doesn't really help you other than it helps everybody. So I'm going to leave that at optional. Automatic sample and cloud delivered protection. Yes, we want those on. That's what sends stuff up to the cloud so it can get exploded. Features, behavior monitoring. Yes, we want that turned on. Notice that's all by itself. Easy to forget. You got to add that one in there. Network protection. This is the web content filtering for our custom indicator URLs we don't want people going to, and also gambling, the usual sites you find in the Defender portal. We got to turn that on to block. An important note here. Our friends at Google and a few other people came up with this QUIC way to use port 443 TLS, in other words, over UDP. That's called QUIC, or quick. That bypasses network protection from Microsoft because it doesn't do the TCP handshake, and that's where the URL is captured. So if we don't see that happening, we can't block it. Now in Windows, we can block QUIC. You can do that in the firewall. Macintosh doesn't have that firewall going out block thing. You can actually block for like one or two browsers. The browsers are being updated for this, but it's just a hole. That's a gap in there. So I'm going to call that out as a gap in protection. Certain websites try and do that. Hopefully we have a solution for that sometime in the near future. Scan schedule. Not available in the AV template. I put it in here because I like a scan schedule. Day of the week, 8. That's every day. Scan type, quick scan. Yeah, you can do a full scan, up to you. Time of day, 7:20. That's 12 hours past midnight. Good time, because in Macintosh, if the device is not running, it won't do a catch up like it will in Windows. So try and do it in the middle of the day when you think the device is going to be available. Quick scan shouldn't bother anybody. Tamper protection. I had this in this policy. Again, normally I wouldn't. I'll have it separate. I just have one tamper protection setting in the tamper protection policy. I just threw it in here so I could show it to you. And then user interface. I like to show the status for users so they see that nice icon up on the top of the screen and notifications. I think it's good. All right, so that's our profile. Great. All right, so the prerequisites, the profile. What else would I have in here? I'd have the onboarding blob. I'll show you kind of a little bit of that in a second. And then those are the main ones that you really need. But let me get back to this so we can finish this up. Again, tamper protection. Normally I have it all by itself. You could do it globally. There it is. You just saw it in the other one. Let me move right on. Here's the onboarding. Onboarding, you're going to have to go to the Defender portal. You have to go to Settings, Defender for Endpoint, or just Endpoints, which is where I'm at here. Settings, Endpoints. Onboarding. Download the device management blob. It's going to be an XML. You'll upload that into a custom profile. All right? And then send that out to everybody, and that'll get them onboarded. Doesn't matter if that hits before or after the app. The app is actually doing this work. Okay? This just tells the app how to do it. The only thing that really needs to be there before the app, again, is that prerequisites, that combined prerequisites one. All the other stuff doesn't really matter. None of that stuff's going to do anything until the app is running, because the app is actually the thing that does it all. All right. And then let's see here. Yeah, the last thing, the app. The app itself is a special app. If you go into Macintosh applications, an app type available to you is Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Choose that app. You could download the package and do it manually, but just stick to this one. That works best. Okay. I think that's it. Again, Macintosh is different. Everybody should be updated as well. Update your Macs. Older Macs don't know how to do things. If you got one from a few years ago, okay, they need a new Mac. Just like Windows, don't let them sit with that old Mac. I think version 26, I think that update is really what you want.